Welcome back to the lab. Excuse me. Welcome back to the lab. If you follow us on Facebook, you will have seen I posted up a picture of a car, front of a car last night. You guys were savage. You absolutely mauled the poor thing. These cars do have a reputation. These cars here. They do have a reputation. Stuff and things happening under here that's not really desirable. And funnily enough, the first thing we're doing on this one is opening the bonnet and revealing this. But only so that we can disconnect the battery so that we don't damage things while we're doing some welding. Because what we're actually doing with this particular car is putting in some tube. With the primary goal being giving us something to attach the stringy bits that hold the organic matter in this contraption here. There really isn't anywhere in here that's suitable. So we've got to put some sort of a bar thing across there. And those of you that are getting annoyed with me using incorrect terminology, we need to install a harness bar to attach the harnesses to get the correct angle, which is between 0 to 20 degrees, so that the frontal head restraints function correctly to comply with the new regulations installed by Tony Quinn at his racetracks. Not complaining about those. It's fine, whatever. We need to get it done. So what we need essentially is a bar. Just making sure I don't hit the door on stuff and things in here. We need a bar that's about this height here, where my finger is running through. It would kind of attach on the doors just above, in between the latchy handle and the holdy handle thing there. About this point here, through the car. And of course there's absolutely no way you can do that. Well, physically you could do it. It just wouldn't comply, right? You could take the panels off the inside of the door and put some attaching points there and bolt your harness bar across between the doors, and it would actually be fine, but wouldn't comply. The book, the rules, Schedule A, actually stipulates that if you're installing a separate harness bar, it has to be between the strut towers. And this plate here, that's the top of the strut, I believe. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure, because I can see a nut on either side and a little rubber thingy in the middle. Looks like the top of a strut to me. So there's no tower, so you can't actually put a bar across there at all. However, I'm pretty sure they'll be happy with a bar located in that general area there to get the harness angles correct. But we have very, very long harnesses, and that's really is kind of too long to be acceptable, right? You want it about 400 mils or something like that is the magic number, or a bit shorter perhaps. So as I said, we need a bar that goes across here to here. We need some attaching points, and we need some talking to Motorsport New Zealand, making sure we're good. The easy way around it that will comply without any questions and actually add a bit more safety to the car is to put a roll bar in, not a roll cage, a roll bar. So we put some sort of attaching point down here somewhere, and a 44 point, whatever it is, 3 or 5 or 8 or whatever it is, tube all the way up across here, down here, comes down and it'll be in this general vicinity here, and then a couple of back stays, put the harness bar across between those tubes, and a diagonal somewhere, or a couple of diagonals. We're thinking maybe in the back stays. And that'll see us all sorted. Trouble is, it needs to be removable. And by the time you fill it out to the outside edges of the car, as per what the schedule says that you need to do, and the back stays are way back here somewhere, we've then got to figure out whether we can actually tip and rotate and manipulate things to get that in and out of the car without taking the car completely to pieces, taking seats out and doors off to get angles correct. So fun and games. Let me have a little think. It might be quite a bit later in the day before we actually see any metal being cut and things being welded and stuff. Stop mocking the guy for having a Subaru. This one's not, do I dare say it? That's wood, that's real wood, touch wood. This one's not broken, okay? It's not going to blow in head gasket or knocky rod at the moment. Right, let me have a think. So, a plan has been hatched. Always talk to your appropriate authority, whether it's Motorsport New Zealand or what do you call it in Australia, CAMS or something like that, or Low Volume Vehicle Technical Association, etc. Always have a chat with them first. If you're doing anything that isn't exactly as per what the book says, you need to have a yarn with them first to make sure. So, I say that because my original plan, not allowed to do that. The kibosh was put on at big time. So, back to a plan that we can do. It's not perfect. It involves slightly longer harnesses than what I wanted, but it'll comply and we'll get the job done. These plates, left, right, captivated nuts, 120 square cent, a little bit more than 120 square centimetres, which is what the brand placement, what the book says. A standalone harness bar, blah, 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 120 square centimetres per plate. There we go. Those are attaching a standalone harness bar to the inner rear wheel arches on the front edge of them. You wouldn't normally do that. You'd put it on the inside edge. I'm going on the front so we can get a bit more height and a bit shorter distance to the seats to get our harnesses somewhere sensible. We want the bar removable. The book says if the bar is to be dismountable, footing plates, blah, 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 because our mounting plate shall be fully welded in full contact with the surface. These ones have to be 100% welded into the car. Even if we put them on the inside of the wheel tub so that the skin was clamped in between these, you still have to weld these in. I did check to see whether that was an option, so then we could just put 8 holes in the car, put a little bit of paint on those holes and we'd be good as gold. But no, these have to be welded in. So I can put those either on the inside of the wheel tubs or just on the surface on the inside of the car. We'll probably just go for that, just because it's much easier to weld it. In theory, it's mechanically stronger to have that inside the wheel tub rather than on top of it, but if you can't do a nice job of your welding because of access and all that sort of carry on, you're only going backwards anyway. We'll get these welded in, and then we'll make the bar. The bar is going to be very simple compared to what we were going to do before. That ends up there like that, that ends up there like that. They are ever so slightly, I'm trying to stack it up to get the right angle, about like that sort of thing, you know. So we can't just have a straight bar and weld onto this, because that's never going to work. We can't do that. It just won't work in this car. So we will have to put just a slight bend at the end so that we can go onto the end of the bar onto this surface. I'm sure that'll be fine, although I should really ring and check. Okay, everything we've done until now has been undoable, or actually it hasn't really even affected the car in any way, shape or form. We haven't put anything on the car just yet, or drilled any holes. I was about to get serious. There's some things in the way here. I'm going to shift these in a second, but I figured it's time to just get on with it and make some progress. There we go. Oh dear, we put a hole in it. It's a bigger hole. It's a really big hole. So there'll be 4 of those on each side, and what that is for the nut that's on the back of that plate to poke through there. So we'll put some paint on everything when we're done, and we'll put some sealant around the back of that nut. There's a plastic panel that goes on the inside of there anyway, so on the floor over there behind the wheel, so that won't be subjected to splashing directly. In fact, it's in a relatively dry, clean environment, but it's going to be quite tricky welding along this edge because we've got sealant in between the 2 panels. It's always great fun, but I'll get it done. All right, about to do a fun part. I'm using the term fun very loosely here. We're going to do some welderizing. I'm going to hold that in the right spot somehow. I'll go get myself a couple of my little magnets that I use. There's a couple of work lights in here to increase the visualability. No, it's not a word, I can't even say it. Can't make that one up because I can't pronounce it. So I can see better. And we'll get to welding this in. It does take a little bit of patience, a little bit of tacking, a little bit of hitting with the hammer. There's a big hammer and drift here somewhere. There you go. Make things fit a little bit better. I've been in here with a vacuum cleaner. I've cleaned out all the swarf and everything from the debauchery earlier on. So if you leave this sort of stuff, grinding dust of that lying around, and then you're welding and you get a couple of sparks, you can have yourself a little wee bonfire, which can end badly. Which reminds me I should get the water bottle over here. Now, rather than pulling the whole car to pieces to get this harness out of the way, I'm just going to very quietly do this side, wait for it to cool down, pull this stuff way out of the way, do the other side. The heat travels a very long way when you're TIG welding. Get a lot of reflective heat. In fact, this can go somewhere else because that'll set itself on fire. And I may even get some aluminium tape to protect things like this, because you don't necessarily see it while you're busy working, and then you look and go, oh no, I've just incinerated his interior. Cool, so we'll get this done. We're never going to finish this today. It's past 3 o'clock and we're only putting the first plate in. The other one, we don't even have holes yet. Nothing done over that side, so should be not really a 2-day job, but it'll stretch out over 2 days to get it done. Well, that's not going anywhere, as they say. Deliberately not welded the entire distance around. I've left just a little piece on the corners to alleviate any tearing. So if you put a massive load on this, more than it can hold, and it starts to pull away, if you have it welded the entire distance, it'll just continue to pull the whole way and just come completely undone. If you have, normally you would do 20 millimeters and then miss a bit, and then 20 millimeters and miss a bit, called stitch welding. And then what happens is it gets to the end of the weld and it's just that much harder for it to start on the next one and carry on with the tear. So technically it's stronger to do it like that, depending on the material, right? So that side's done, welded in. To untangle everything. This stuff is going to have to sit over the top of the bar when the bar is in the car, and then it can sit back down where it normally sits when the bar is out, so the seat can go back in. There's a clip here. I'll leave this, so no harness bar in there. You'll be able to push that all the way down. When the harness bar is in, just pull it back up like that, and away you go. Definitely going to run out of time. I might get this other side over there welded in like that today, and that's about as far as we'll go. All of a sudden there was more stuff in there. Not all the stuff. These have to have spring washers, and these are actually too long. They hang out into the wheel tub so far, you'll probably scuff your tyres on them and have a bad day. That's still hot. Good one. So can see there's reasonably good penetration on that. The tube's attached to there. That's deliberately cocked over and on an angle like that, so it is actually that way as well, slightly, so that even if the weld fails, it's then got to actually push this out of the way to pull the tube forward. So we've got some basic mechanical strength there, as well as the welding, which always looks pretty rungy on the camera, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. So the car is very jacked at the back. We're on axle stands, so it's on quite an angle like that, but I'll be able to put the harness. I should turn that light off for you. There you go, it's off. Put the harness from this point here to here and just ensure the angles are what I worked them out to be earlier on. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to put some eyelets in this harness bar and I'm going to lift them towards the top a little bit to shorten things up and to help with the angles. It's about all we can do in this situation. As I said earlier, the ideal would be a harness bar across between the doors, but you can't do that. So it's about as good as we can do. I'm sure other people will come up with better ideas, but this is what we've got. Did you get it right? Anyway, so we've got the harness bar that's sorted. Not sure if I've shown you that. I won't show you that right now because everything's kind of disassembled inside the car because we need to put some of these things in. That there thing there. This, what these are for. This goes on inside of the car, on the floor, transmission tunnel. Unlikely to put it on the sills, you won't get access to it, but that's the two most common places, floor or transmission tunnel. And that goes underneath the car on the outside, on the other side of the skin. That's got a, I think it's 7/16 by 20 TPI thread on it, which is the magic thread that they use for all seatbelt bolts, pretty much all. There's probably some random ones that aren't. And also the eyelets that go onto your harnesses. So, let's go have a look at the car. Let's undo that. It's all really hard. Let's throw it across the, there we go. We got that back. Put that back where it was, or I'll lose it. That's the last of the ones of those that I've got. Anyway, so the car is flying. Look, the wheels are in the air. What we've got is a situation where someone's pulled it all completely to pieces, so it makes it hard to show you what's going on. Fortunately, we have the passenger side. Let's go around there. Oh, let's start back here. Don't worry about that. That's kind of thrown. Here's a harness bar anyway, right? All mounted up, M8 bolts, spring washers underneath. That's by rules, you have to have that. Washers on here to stop the harnesses sliding where we don't want them to slide. One set of harnesses are 2-inch ones and the other set are 3-inch. So for now, I've put the 3-inch on the driver's side and they fit more snug in here. As you can see, there's obviously about 2 inches of slop there because I've made that so we can fit the 3-inch harnesses either side. Anyway, Subaru in their infinite wisdom, as do many other manufacturers, not really picking on Subaru in particular, although you guys did on the net, didn't you? They use this bolt here to attach the seat belt and the seat to the floor. And under Motorsport New Zealand rules, that's a big no-no. You cannot do that. You've got to have an independent bolt for the seat and for the belt. And you can't even have a nice big strong bolt here and a bracket and then put your eyelet onto that. I've tried to swing that by them and that's a no, you can't. So effectively what they're saying is the seat cannot be a stressed member, i.e. you can't have anything that's to do with the seat actually holding your belts. So okay, that's all right. It's all right, that's the rules. We'll play by those. That's what we've, I don't know what this is. You damp, yucky, stinky goop. So there's the solution there. That I can't point to it while I hold the carpet. Yes, I can. That bolt hole there is the one that originally held the original factory belt and seat. And so now we've put this one back here to hold our harness. Unfortunately, that involves putting a hole in the carpet. Really can't do anything about that. So we will put a small slot, much smaller than what the factory has, back here somewhere, and then we can put the eye bolt through that. That takes care of that corner. This corner here, it's got a mounting arrangement here. This is the hole in the middle of your screen there that holds the seat belt, the factory seat belt, and this other contraption that goes up into the B-pillar. I'm not going to look to see what it's all about. So we're going to put the eye bolt through here to hold the original factory belt and the harness, because you're not going to wear both of them at the same time, so they should be fine with that. Then we've got to do something in here and amongst this mess. Actually, right about where my finger is on the screen, we need a one of these that we put over here, a doubler plate. We need that there. The problem is Subaru have put a chassis rail right there, right where we want to put it. So the belts are double belts. It's a 6-point harness. There's 2 clutch straps. They're kicking around in the front there. So we'll do 2 doubler plates, one on either side of the chassis rail, and that will solve that problem. Next problem is I don't have 2 double plates. There's been a bit of a stuff up with bits and pieces arriving. I've got one, so I'll do that now. Sit on the couch and have a cold drink, wait for the other one to arrive. And whatever I just told you has now become lies. The chassis here and here, it's actually quite a long way out. And then the floor is quite heavily radiused, so we won't be able to get these plates sitting on there nicely without manipulating things a lot, to the point where it's just not actually practical. So we'll just go with the one in the middle. Of course, we can't get to the inside of the chassis to put a plate in there. Although we sort of can, but it won't really comply. Subaru's put this here for some reason. I'm thinking, and it certainly looks like it's just glued in there with some sealant, and we'll be able to just take this off, and then you would actually fit the plate into the inside of the chassis. But this rather rough looking cross that I've drawn here is the center of where we need this to be. So we're not going to be able to put that on there and cover all the holes. Quite the PITA. So what I may do is make a even bigger plate. Now that I've taken all the cadmium plating off that, thinking I was going to weld this over here until I took the carpet up and realised, oh dear, I marked it through one of these other holes earlier on and didn't realise that was actually a piece that comes out. So I'll have to make a bigger plate that covers this area with a nut on the back of it. Might be able to ping one of these off, unless I've got some in the box. It's never easy. It's never easy. All right. Not necessarily the most beautiful thing in the world, but that complies. I mentioned making a plate. When you read the rules, the hole has to be in the center of the plate. So making a bigger plate to try and get things better wasn't going to technically comply or achieve anything. Because we try and weld out here, on the other side of that, under the chassis, is sealant and stuff and things, and it'll just blow through. So then you'd have to grind off all that stuff under there, and then you'd have to put it back on again afterwards, etc. Big dramas. So that's good. I've got some white paint. I'll put some white paint on that. I'll take a couple of photos and give them to the owner so he can show any scrutineers what's there, and that will be good. So we've got a plate there. There's a big finger there, isn't there? There's a plate there. There's a plate there. And that should be enough to achieve what we wanted to achieve. Game plan changed a few times on the way with basically everything on this. But hey, I think we're done. A couple of holes in the carpet, put everything back together, and we're good. So the car's gone. I kind of stuffed up. I got as far as that little bit that you just saw and didn't finish the video off. And Dan and his dad popped down from Pukekohe, picked up the car, took it away, edited the video earlier on today and realised I didn't really finish the video off. There's something I never knew about that car until after the job was done. Somebody brought it up on the lab on the Facebook page, and I never went and looked because I'm not on Instagram. There's apparently an account, Jacob's Legacy, on Instagram. Jacob was brother-in-law, maybe, for Dan. Excuse me if I've got that wrong. I'm sorry. Bad at that sort of thing, remembering that sort of thing. 21-year-old apprentice, doing really well. Nearly finished his apprenticeship and all that sort of carry on. No warning signs or anything, and decided to take his own life. So Dan's finishing off the car in a way that he thought Jacob might want to do the car, and going to do event. I saw the car at Chrome, so he is doing events with it, and wants to run it in Super Lap. This is why it needs to be a road car as much as it is a track car, as far as having some fun in it, not outright competition car, but get out there and use it. And of course, with the rules on the track, you have to have that harness bar. So this is why it needed to be removable, and that's why it ended up being just that little bit not achievable within the specs that I wanted to put into it. Anyway, before I even knew that this is what it was all about. So there's help out there, guys, if you need it. You know where to find it. But thanks for watching. We'll try and get some footage of that car later on when it's at Super Lap. I'm busy tinkering with this thing here. Stuff on the other side of the firewall, actually. And hopefully we'll be there first round Pukekohe coming up soon. All right. Thanks for watching. Cheers, bye.